All right, welcome back to another episode of Through the Roof, where we're talking about all things metal roofing, steel siding, post frame buildings. I feel like the introduction to this podcast gets longer
We keep including more stuff
every
time.
episode that we do. We keep including more things that we're wanting to talk about. It's just going to be a talk show at some point. But we are joined by the nationally renowned Mr. and Mrs. Post Frame, less known as Paul and Emily Marshall. Thank you guys for hopping on with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, this is going to be a blast. So everybody in the post frame industry is going to light up when they see y'all's names on here. You guys have become somewhat of a celebrity in this unique industry we've all found ourselves in. So we'll cut the intro stuff and just kind of jump right into who you guys are. I know that you guys have had plenty of experience in just the general building industry. Before you kind of niched down into post frame, talk about, what your experience was like when you decided post frame was something you were going to focus on.
Well, I mean, I grew up on a farm in northern Illinois, so I've been around post frame my whole life. And kind of as I got older, graduated from college, I had this, dream of building a house someday. And I'm like, man, it'd be really cool to turn a barn post frame into a home. And so that was kind of my, kind of how I initially got interested in it. And then we did a lot of remodels when we had our previous careers. And so I learned all the different trades. I worked for different trades, and I'm not sure how I convinced you to like let me just build this a post frame home, because
I know.
we didn't even have any plans.
She's like, it was actually my idea.
Well, no, he convinced me because he told me that if he built the house this way, that it would be really low maintenance and easy to take care of. And we had been living in renovations for years and years and years, and nothing was ever fully done. And so that convinced me, because I was like, well, if it's going to make it so that it'll be done and you won't have to keep doing things to it, then I'm on board. And so that's what sold me on it, is I was just kind of tired of living in construction.
That'll do it. So had post frame been something that you had known about, or you got introduced to, or is it an original thought for you?
Well, like I said, I grew up on a farm, so and I just the way my mind is and who I am, I'm always looking at how things are built. It's kind of my how my mind works, and I've always been interested in building. And I've always wanted, I'm an outdoorsman, so I've always wanted like wide open, more open concept. I've always wanted a house with a huge great room with big windows where I could hang maybe a few of my deer heads and have a big fireplace. It's just kind of always something that I've had in my mind, and so I came up with this. I was actually planning to quit my job, and as I was planning to quit my job, I would sit and kind of draw out plans for how I was going to build this house when I made my escape.
Yeah.
The great
I think
escape.
that being from the Midwest, I mean, it feels like everybody has a pole barn, and they're all over the place here and things like that. So we were both really familiar with it because we had seen these buildings all over. We had them on our properties that we owned, so it wasn't a foreign concept at all. It was just making that leap to, can you make this in a residence?
And one of the things that I really liked about it, and I knew would be a big deal for us, is we couldn't afford to pay somebody to build us a house turnkey. So one of the benefits of post frame, obviously, is you can complete the shell, and then you can move inside, and you kind of have this slate. So that was a big factor for me. Is like, I know I'm going to have to build this 95% of this thing if we want, to build a house, because we just financially at that point in our lives, it wasn't an option.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I think attracts most people to this style of building, is it's something they can get a shell up relatively affordably and then finish it out, as they are able to financially or get time or whatever. And so you've attracted a pretty big following of people that probably have the same mentality as you.
Sure.
When did you realize, oh, wow, we're getting kind of popular. Like this is something people are interested in.
I don't know. We talk about this all the time. So we started the YouTube channel, what was it,
March of 2019, we
And-
started.
Okay.
my thought was, okay, Emily wanted me to start. You just explain why you wanted me to start the YouTube channel. 'Cause
Sure.
It's kind of unique.
So about, we had our first kid 11 years ago, and that was around the time that YouTube really became, people were starting to be on YouTube more regularly. And so I'd had our first child, and I was on maternity leave, and I found beauty influencers on YouTube. And so I was sitting watching makeup tutorials and all of this stuff and I was like, you could do that, but you could do it with construction. So I had this idea that, like, why couldn't you just replicate the same style? Like they're talking, they're educating, they're showing you all of this stuff. Why can't you just do that with construction? And so, that was in late 2013. And so it took until 2019 when we felt like we were in a spot where, I was like, hey, you can do this house and stuff. You've convinced me to build the house this way. I don't totally know what it's going to look like when it's all done, but you have to YouTube it. And so that's what compelled us to start that, was just seeing that there was an opportunity to share what we were doing. And it was somewhat novel that it was like this guy that was going to build this house all by himself.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest factor for me with the YouTube channel was like, I don't know anybody where we moved. We picked up and left where we lived in Illinois, where I grew up, and moved out here to Iowa. So we didn't know anybody. So I'm like, well, if I do this YouTube channel like she wants, I'll at least be able to say, hey, to a client, if you want to see my work, you can check out these videos, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and a little background on me, I had spent probably 8-9 years with Midwest Whitetail producing deer hunts. And so I learned a lot about video editing, that whole process, and as I was, would go to these meetings with Midwest Whitetail, I'm like, I could do the same thing only in construction. So that's, a lot of these things came together and it just worked out. But I often wonder what kept me going, because when we started it took months and months and months, and we were at like, 40 subscribers, 50 subscribers, and I look back today and I'm like, why did I keep doing this? Because it's a lot of work. I mean, it's not easy to film everything and then edit it. But I came off a law enforcement career where I was working 70 hours a week. I averaged probably 5 hours of sleep for 15 years. And so I would work all day out here videoing and building. And then I would come home, and after we put the kids to bed, I would edit. So it's just
it's a long day.
Kind of a perfect storm, I guess.
Yes. And so then, like, fast forward to, well, it seemed like from March until Thanksgiving of 19, he was just putting out videos. And Thanksgiving 2019, our first cost video had been published about a week prior, and it went viral. So it started, it really is the snowball that started everything from that point, is because he produced this video on how much had we spent up to that point of the build. And
it was a terrible video, by the way.
Well, the quality was like,
that's always how it goes. Those are the ones that go viral.
Like hear a train in the background.
I mean, it was the information that nobody was sharing and everybody wanted to hear. And so we started out Thanksgiving week with maybe 300 subscribers, and hit 1,000 Thanksgiving night. We hit, I think by the end of the year, we had 15,000 subscribers.
No way.
And like, it just kept going from there. And all of our videos started getting massive traction and things like that. And so then you have spring of 2020, and we all know what happened then. And that basically drove everybody home to watch our videos.
Mm-hmm.
And so that continued the traction. YouTube featured us as their creator of the day in April, and we gained, I think, 30,000 subscribers in April. So it just created this frenzy in that time frame. So from Thanksgiving till, summer of 2020, I think we had gone like to, like 60,000 subscribers from 13 or something, 300 or whatever. So it was a rapid growth. And then it just, and it started gaining all of this attention from people, because they were like, wow, there's this guy building this house, and I want to do that too. That looks cool.
And then you woke up and realized we're YouTubers.
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys have, go ahead, Paul.
Well, and then we realized, as we went along in our, we started moving in, we're thinking, okay, well, we have to make money somehow outside of YouTube because, our experience, we weren't just bringing in loads of cash through YouTube.
Sure.
So we're like, we have to do something. I'm like, well, we have all these people that are asking us, hey, will you build us one of these? Will you build us one of these? I'm like, well, we should just build them.
Right. So to give a little perspective on what creating content kind of requires of somebody when you're doing something, we estimate it was an additional 8 to 9 months tacked onto our home build project because of all of the additional time it takes to film everything, edit everything, create all of these videos. So it was a massive investment of time to capture all of this, because with our personal home build, there is a video on nearly every single step of the whole process. There's about 200 videos on just our home build alone. And so that really added a ton of time. So it wasn't until the fall of 21 that we were really starting to wind down our personal home build. And that's when we started taking on clients, and starting to work with them. And that started it's a whole roller coaster of its own.
Okay, so really the traction that you got from YouTube is what sparked the idea to start a business out of this.
Yes.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you've gotten so many people in your audience now. I can't imagine the number of questions that you guys probably field from all of your platforms combined. What has it been like interacting with your audience and trying to be helpful with those resources?
It was a major problem because we're like, man, we have all these questions. How are we supposed to answer all these questions? And then, we tried consulting. I'm like, well, I can't spend my time consulting because I need to be out building and videoing. And so we just,
So it was definitely an evolution. A lot of the questions initially revolved around design. So we started offering design services and things like that. And that evolved. And, eventually, our final landing spot has been to become owners of Back 40 Buildings, which is our architectural firm. So, that was one main component that just evolved from basically fall of 21 until today into what it is. And then the other things that people were asking us about were just a lot, and they weren't all localized. So of course we had our group of local people that wanted us to build for them, but they were people all over the country. And they were like, can I do this? Can I, what do you think? I have questions about this. I saw you do a video on X, Y, and Z. Can you give me a little more detail? Or these are my specifications. How can you help me out? And so that led us to create a DIY membership group in 2022 is what we ended up putting that together in order to facilitate all of the people that want to learn more about this construction type, learn more about DIYing in general, just building your own home and general contracting your own home. And so that's how we've responded to it, is by creating these really powerful resources that allow us to give ourselves to more people at once, and allow people to have access to high quality, trusted information, because we all know that there's a ton of information out there. And as YouTubers, we can even say it. We're like, it's all well and good to go watch a YouTube video, but you got to make sure the person showing you what to do actually knows what they're doing.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So we really pride ourselves on making sure that what we share is good quality education. It's not trying to point somebody in a really specific direction. It's saying, hey, here are the facts. Here's the information we know and we have. You guys can take it and figure out what you want to do with it from there.
Wow, I love that. It fires me up so much. So you guys found ways to solve those problems, because I know that we get asked a ton of questions, and we're not even on the builder side of it. We're just the manufacturer and supplier. And so I can imagine with the kind of content you guys create, how many people came to you. So kudos to you for being creative with a way to solve those problems. I know that's a big deal for listeners. I'm interested on a more personal level, Mr. and Mrs. Postframe, what it's like working together as Mr. and Mrs. Postframe. So, like, Shannon was talking about earlier, I think before we got on the call, you guys have kind of built sub brands of Mr. Postframe and Mrs. Postframe.
And they are different. Like,
and they are different.
Very aesthetically different.
Yeah, you guys are appealing to different audiences.
Yeah, but they still come together to help both sides of that. So if you want to talk about those different platforms and kind of your specialties on both sides of that.
Yeah, so that was kind of an evolution too. So we were originally Marshall Remodel. That's kind of how we started.
Oh, okay.
And, as this grew, we're like, okay, we can make a business out of this. So Emily, I think it's you that mainly came up with the Mr. Postframe thing. So that was the original concept. It is more of a
what a great name it is.
we wanted to build a brand that was easily recognizable, that wasn't necessarily our name, but that stands out, right? So that was kind of how that went. And then Emily has a lot of stuff with design on the interior organization stuff. And if you guys know how YouTube works, if you have a certain kind of content on your channel, you can't really go in a bunch of different directions or it just hurts it. It's just the way it is. And so we decided to start Mrs. Postframe. And then, Emily's been doing, our main business is Mr. Postframe. But Emily has started to grow that and you have social media under Mrs. Postframe. We have social media under Mr. Postframe. And then we have social media under Back 40 Buildings. So that's kind of how that evolutionized. And
yes, because we were finding that Paul was wanting to share. I mean, he's on job sites, he's actively doing these projects, and so he's sharing that type of content, very specific construction related content. And then we were finding that there's so much more to it. And then on the business side, I was doing the roles of the general contracting, project management role, those things. And so I really found a way to share. That's what I like to talk about, is just some of those overarching subject matters, and being able to educate people on the process, educate people on the planning of their build. And so that's how they're separate, but how they really do complement each other very, very well, depending on what you're looking for and what you need.
Yeah.
Did you guys just figure that out because you're smart, or was it trial and error? Because a lot of people, I don't feel like would understand that, Paul. Like you were saying, some people don't understand that if you mix if your content mix is too diverse, you're really going to hurt the platform.
I mean, we have some things that we're gonna be launching in 2025 because of YouTube and the analytics and all that stuff. But you start to realize, okay, I look at my YouTube channel, it's 90% of the followers are men between the ages of 24 and 64. So you have to, like, a lot of what Emily talks about is very important, but not all those, like it's trying to get the other half of the couple into the mix. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Can we capture the other half? And so I don't know if I would say we were that smart. I would say that, as your business progresses, you get to forks in the road and you're like, okay, we got to figure something out. And then you start brainstorming and, you just come up with.
I mean, he did tell me that he was like, too many guys, like builders and construction people, follow me on Instagram, and you don't need to like be in my stories, like drinking your coffee and just jab about it.
So you're like, I'll just start my own.
Right. Yeah. So that was some of it, is just helping like create that differentiation, so that if you really weren't interested in like me chatting up about what I was doing, because I do that every once in a while, then you weren't like, oh, I should quit following this guy because his wife is randomly talking about their kids, or
his wife has taken over his Instagram.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
But your content does focus. It kind of focuses on that side of the coin. Like I've watched some of your videos, and you do the coffee style, like sit down with me, let's like have a conversation. So you really are able to catch both of those audiences, from design to building construction, and what are the issues that you had as you were first moving into your home, and what does the timeline look like, the cost, like, so you guys do a good job of balancing those different sides without, I guess, like screwing up both of your platforms by blending them too
If
much.
I had to think of the most common thing I hear in the building industry, and I know you guys have probably heard this too, it's let me ask my wife.
Yeah.
Or let me check with the wife. What's keeping you from buying this right now? Well, let me run it by the wife. So the fact that you guys have like figured out to appeal to both of those audiences, because it's two different like streams of content, but it really is kind of the same audience, just in different ways.
It is. As Shannon pointed out, it's two sides of the same coin. We're giving you a full package experience where you can learn everything that you need to know about building your barndominium, from the contracting, the design, the planning, the process. So if you're planning on having someone build your home for you, we're still a really great resource for you, because you can learn what your expectations should be and really how does it go. And then if you're wanting to build your house, we have all of that information of showing you in detail, not just like, fast forward through everything. It's like, no, there's detailed videos on how, if you want to teach yourself how to do something.
And then you've got the company to install them too. So you guys really are covering everything.
Right.
Yeah. Shane and I are marketing nerds, so we could really turn this into a whole marketing podcast if we wanted to. But we better switch gears for the listeners' sake. I'm really interested to hear about some of the projects. Is there a project that stands out to you as the most memorable for any reason whatsoever, good or bad? Is there a project like, man, that one is
outside of your own home,
unforgettable
obviously?
project? Yeah, of course.
Yes, there is, and it's mainly because of, I don't know how I should say this. There's a specific county in the state that we worked with, and it was the worst experience of our lives. Just
really
uneducated about post frame, and we build primarily homes, so it was just kind of a nightmare. We've been done with it, but it's still haunting us. It's one of those jobs that you're like, I could have done without this one.
Yeah.
But that happens
I was
more
gonna
often.
say.
Like people would relate to that because it's
Yes.
not always the easiest thing to convince everybody of.
Yeah.
What's your advice for somebody that finds themselves in a county or somewhere like that doesn't understand post frame and they really want this kind of build?
Well, what's happened, because we've had some significant things happen throughout the last few years with our business and our home and clients and things like that some people could look at and say, I'm going to shut down and I'm just going to give up and everything like that. But we've always noticed that they create incredible opportunities for us to be a voice and to provide good quality information around stuff. And so in this situation, it has helped propel us into saying, all right, well, what can we do to help people that are going to be working with counties that are going to have similar approaches? How can we provide good quality education? What are the go-to resources that somebody should always include when they're submitting their plans? How do you talk to your county? What questions do you ask? All of those things, because there is always a workaround with stuff. Some people, sometimes the workaround is that, it might look like you're giving up, but really you're just taking some more extreme legal measures and things like that. And then for other people, the route is that, good conversation and with reasonable people can produce great results. We have a design client that is building in one of the counties right outside of Chicago, which Illinois and Chicago and all of that is notorious for being very, very strict and very, very picky. He's self-building a post-frame home from one of our designs without having an engineer stamp on it, because it took a lot of conversation. It took a lot of providing documentation and research and revising some things in his plans, but he managed to do that because we helped walk him through, okay, ask him this, do this, what did he say, what was their response, that type of thing, which for a client, that saves thousands of dollars when you don't have to do that. And it also goes to show that there is a way to present, and there is some really valuable information. And then of course, when somebody engineers, we work with engineers that specialize in post frame and understand that type of construction as well. So there's a lot of things, a lot of ways that people can still get it done. And we're continuing to work on what are some great ways to do this, make it a nice, smooth, and easy process for people.
However, my first advice for everybody is to build somewhere where you don't have to deal with that. But yes, we have learned a lot. I mean, you always hear that, you learn by making mistakes or going through hard times. And that is 100% the truth. I mean, we've had points in the last 5-6 years, and I'm like, I don't know if this is worth it. This is so much work, but if you give up, I guess the way I look at it is I could go back. I was in law enforcement for 15 years, and the thought of having to go back and do something like that is, I'd rather do what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And we're helping a lot of people, which is awesome. We're meeting a lot of people like you guys, and that we're going to be able to help. And so it's been really good.
That's the age-old entrepreneurial story. I can't think of anybody that's successful that doesn't have a little bit of that kind of story.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of DIY followings and homeowner followings. Paul, you specifically have a lot of young guys who are wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps and really build post-frame construction companies. I've got some personal friends that really admire your work. And what would your advice be to the next generation of post-frame builders?
I mean, it's a big opportunity, right? I think in the next few years, we're going to see like the building code's going to have to make a special section for barndominiums. I mean, they did it with container homes, so barndominiums, they're going to do it because it needs to be done to deal with these more strict counties. I would tell them it's a great opportunity to educate themselves, and that's what we're for. We actually help a lot of builders. We don't look at them as competition. We help with them in design. We help them with them in our patron group. We really want to see the industry grow, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. Try to find, if they're not starting their own business, try to get on with a crew somewhere to learn as much as they can. Save your money because there's a lot of equipment that you need.
Yeah. And it's, you said this morning, doing the right thing or the thing that's going to turn out the best isn't typically the easiest route that you'll take. And I think that would apply to anybody who's wanting to get into this industry, is to not short yourself and just follow maybe a big portion of like any industry, that's like, oh, they kind of cut corners, or, they don't really care about this or that or the other thing. Yeah. If you want to get into this industry, and especially if you're wanting to build barndominiums, be the person that is doing everything top notch. Be the person that is like, hey, like we told clients every single time we would meet with anybody is, we're not going to be the cheapest, but I can guarantee you we're going to be the best. And, we're also not going to be the most expensive either. Like, we're going to give you a high quality product. And so it's going to cost more than something that has a bunch of corners cut and things that you don't know, because you don't know. You're hiring us to build it for you. So you don't know what you don't know. And so we really made sure that like our standard was always like the highest of what, how you build these as residential homes, not trying to just be like, we're going to cut a corner and it's fine, it'll be okay. Because we've heard in the industry, like some people view barndominiums as like almost temporary homes. They put them in a classification with mobile homes, with modular homes, things like that. And it should not be that way. You shouldn't be able to classify them in that same grouping, that it's something that's not meant to stand the test of time. The house that we built, that we live in, should properly maintained. It should stay standing indefinitely.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you said that, because I agree. I think there is a lot of misinformation, mainly from people who just don't understand what this even is. We deal with this on just the roofing side, where roofers want to, talk bad about metal roofing because they don't know how to install it, or they don't understand how it works. So they just say something bad about it. I think that's probably true across any industry. Mm-hmm. I think we share the same values with you guys, is injecting as much good, easily digestible information into the public square as we possibly can about post frame and how it's a really good, viable solution. Last question here, big one. What's your favorite tool to work with when you're building?
Oh man, I would say the most used tool is my skid steer, my Teleskid.
Wow. Okay.
Which, obviously if I didn't have the business, I would not be spending that kind of money on it, but it's an invaluable tool. Even before I had the one I had a Bobcat S250. We bought it. I had started a tree farm and I dug trees by hand until I had enough cash saved up to buy that skid steer.
Oh, wow.
So I could buy a tree spade. And I would say, like what I tell all of our followers that are self-building or going to move out of the country, a skid steer is an invaluable tool because you can rent attachments for a couple $100 and you can do about anything with them. And it relieves a lot of physical labor.
I like that answer. All right, I'll go buy a skid steer.
Yeah.
You've convinced me.
Yeah.
Well, man, thank you guys so much for hopping on here. In the rare event that somebody is just now hearing about you for the first time, where is the first place they should go to get in touch with you guys?
MrPostFrame.com. So MRPostFrame.com is the best place. We have a ton of great resources for everything from finding our socials to DIY lending, insurance, building options, things like that.
That's awesome. And if you guys listening have questions about this, they've got the resources. They talked about it to help coach you guys through that. If you've got questions on metal roofing or steel siding, you've followed Paul's advice all the way there, and now you don't know where to get your metal roof or metal siding from. Well, you can call us at Drew Metal Supply. We'll help you out with that. But until next time, if you enjoyed what you were hearing, hit the subscribe button for us. It helps a ton. And thank you guys again so much. I hope you guys have a killer year this year.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right. We'll see you next time.